All right, so I think we're going to get started. I see that there are some folks that have signed in, and if folks show up a little bit late, well, that's okay. We are recording this presentation, and it will be available on our website. We will be sending out links to that to all folks that have registered for the presentation. So once again, thank you for joining and our presentation today. This is actually a presentation that's going to be at least a three-part series. We're toying with potentially adding an additional component. And this first presentation that we're doing today is going to set the stage or set the groundwork for the analytics topics that we will be covering. And obviously, as the title illustrates, we are going to be talking about descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive analytics. All right, our agenda for today, we're going to do a quick introduction. Basically, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Done Solutions Group and a little bit about me. And then we're going to dive right into the material. So we're going to start with setting the stage, laying some groundwork and some terminology and so on, so that we all have a common set of vocabulary that we will be using throughout the presentations. What's interesting about this is you're going to see words that you're probably familiar with, and you'll hear the definition according to Jose, myself, as to what they mean, and they will probably fall in line with some of the things that you've expected. And you might be surprised by some of the definitions, but we'll see. But that's the whole point of setting the stage so that we're all talking about the same thing. Then we're going to switch gears and talk about analytics and the different types of analytics. And in this presentation, we are going to focus on descriptive analytics. All right, so I think we're going to get started. I see that there are some folks that have signed in, and if folks show up a little bit late, well, that's okay. We are recording this presentation, and it will be available on our website. We will be sending out links to that to all folks that have registered for the presentation. So once again, thank you for joining and our presentation today. This is actually a presentation that's going to be at least a three-part series. We're toying with potentially adding an additional component. And this first presentation that we're doing today is going to set the stage or set the groundwork for the analytics topics that we will be covering. And obviously, as the title illustrates, we are going to be talking about descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive analytics. So prior to doing that, though, I am obligated to show you a short commercial. And normally, I have someone to help me with that, but I'm flying solo today. So it will be the first time I do the commercial by myself, but I think we're going to be okay. All right, our agenda for today, we're going to do a quick introduction. Basically, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Done Solutions Group and a little bit about me. And then we're going to dive right into the material. So we're going to start with setting the stage, laying some groundwork and some terminology and so on, so that we all have a common set of vocabulary that we will be using throughout the presentations. What's interesting about this is you're going to see words that you're probably familiar with, and you'll hear the definition according to Jose, myself, as to what they mean, and they will probably fall in line with some of the things that you've expected. And you might be surprised by some of the definitions, but we'll see. But that's the whole point of setting the stage so that we're all talking about the same thing. Then we're going to switch gears and talk about analytics and the different types of analytics. And in this presentation, we are going to focus on descriptive analytics, followed by presentations that will focus on predictive analytics and prescriptive analytics. And obviously, at the end, we're going to talk about what's next and some of the scheduling for some of the other presentations. So Done Solutions Group is a full-service IT consultancy. We were founded in 1988. I joined the organization in 1991, so I've been here for quite some time. We have offices, our corporate headquarters in the Chicago area. Technically, we're in Skokie, Illinois, just outside of Chicago, with offices in Minneapolis, St. Louis, Raleigh, North Carolina, and a facility in Bangalore, India. The organization is made up of primarily two practice areas with some offshoot things that we do as well. And the first of the practice area, which was the original practice area and where I came from, the application development group. And that team primarily focuses on portals and e-commerce solutions, as well as mobile application development and custom application development. I would say that primarily the languages that they tend to work with are Java and .NET. And there's a sprinkling of other languages in there as well, but those are the primary ones. And then there's the Business Intelligence Group. I am the director of the Business Intelligence Group. And we primarily focus on building data warehouse and analytics solutions for our customers across a variety of industries. And obviously, these days, we're also, excuse me here, I might be having some technical difficulties. Testing 1, 2.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
I apologize. I believe that we started this and people could not hear me. Can someone respond in the question area and tell me if you can hear me now? All right. Well, that's a much better way to start when folks can hear me. I do apologize for that. So you saw a few of my slides, but in silent mode, and that doesn't work out too well. Let's get started again, and I'll get through those really quick. So welcome to our presentation. This is the first in a series of 3, maybe 4 presentations that we're going to do on analytics, focusing on descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive analytics. My name is Jose Hernandez. I am the Director of Business Intelligence for Dun Solutions Group. So very quickly, our agenda today, we're going to do a quick introduction who I am, as well as Dun Solutions. And then we're going to set the stage for this series of presentations. And what we're going to do today is set some groundwork and some terminology, as well as focus on the first of the different types of analytics, and that's descriptive analytics. After we set some of the groundwork here in play, we are going to focus on what analytics and what they are, and then turn our attention to descriptive analytics, which is the first of the 3 different types of analytics that we are going to be talking about. And when we're done with that, we will follow up with next steps and when the next presentation is going to be and what it's going to cover. So we'll get started with a quick commercial around Dun Solutions Group. Dun Solutions is an IT consultancy that was founded in 1988. I joined the organization and in 1991. Today I'm the director of the BI group, but back then I was one of the developers within the company. We have offices, our corporate headquarters in the Chicago area. Technically we're in Skokie, Illinois, with offices in Minneapolis, St. Louis, and Raleigh, North Carolina. We also have an office in Bangalore, India, which we have staff there and provide some of our global services from there. So Dun Solutions Group is primarily comprised of 2 practice areas, the Application Development Group and the Business Intelligence Group. Now there's offshoots services that we offer from those groups that cover certified training, as well as some products that we've developed along the way, but let's focus on the practice areas for the moment. So the application development group primarily focuses on portal and e-commerce solutions. They also develop mobile applications and custom applications of all kinds. The languages that they primarily deal with are Java and .NET, though there is a spattering of other things that they use as well. The business intelligence area, we focus on delivering analytic solutions and data warehouses for our customers. We also have a practice focused around predictive analytics. That's going to be the topic of the second presentation that we do, the whole predictive thing, but it ties into analytics in general. Along the way, we have partnered with a variety of organizations and have become certified trainers for some of these vendors and products that we work with. And one of the things that we've discovered over the years is if we can provide training for the various technologies that we use to build our solutions, we can ensure that our customers are well prepared to go ahead and use the solutions that we create, as well as maintain the solutions that we've created for them. We've also worked in a variety of verticals, and as we've worked on some of these verticals, we have developed some frameworks. The ones that you see listed here on this slide particularly relate to business intelligence. And so these frameworks are basically jumpstart pieces of code that'll get you up and running more quickly than if you were to try to build all this from scratch. So I call this my NASCAR slide, and my NASCAR slide, one day I'm going to figure out how to wrap this around a race car, because it'll be really cool. But it's basically the logos of some of the organizations that we've worked with. Done Solutions Group does work across a variety of verticals, and our customers span from Fortune 500 companies to startups in the public sector and in the private sector. So we have worked with a variety of different types of folks with a variety of different types of solutions, and we hope to work with some of the organizations of folks that are on this call right now as well. My slide is taking its time advancing here. Here we go. So in order to provide some of those solutions that we provide for our customers, we have partnered up with industry-leading organizations. You can see some of those here as well. Specifically for the business intelligence practice, we work with SAP, Microsoft, and Informatica. There's some other folks that we are partnering up with at the present time, but these are our key partners and areas that we specialize in. When we talk about the business intelligence practice, it's interesting. There's so many parts and pieces to business intelligence these days that we have to kind of break it up into subparts. And so today, whether it's business intelligence 1.0 or 2.0, we are providing services around these areas for our customers. And it's interesting how big data is merging into traditional data warehousing and how all these things are feeding business analytics and business intelligence. And that's some of the things that we are going to be talking about today in our presentation. Our predictive analysis practice, which is a sister practice to the BI group, focuses on data mining and predictive modeling to provide additional capabilities for our customers. And basically, it's that next step or that evolution that takes business intelligence from just looking in the rearview mirror, which we're going to talk about, into being able to model and predict things to optimize the various business processes within organizations. I'm not going to say much more about this today, simply because it's going to be covered in the next presentation that we do, and so I don't want to have any spoilers sneak out there. And when we deliver solutions for our customers, these solutions are built in are delivered in a variety of ways. We have projects that we deliver using our US-based team, as well as our global team. So depending on the size of the projects and the type of solution that we're providing, we can deliver these with our global team. or our US-based team, and take advantage of the appropriate sizing of the team and ensure that we're delivering the best value at the best cost. All right, so I am going to take a drink here of water before I dive into the next and important part of our agenda, setting the stage for analytics here. All right, so some of you that are viewing this presentation may have met me. Some of you may have not, but I wanted to put a face to the voice so that you know that there's a real person over here delivering this presentation today. So I've been with Dunn Solutions Group for a long time, as I mentioned, and I took over the BI practice in 2001, and that's pretty much what I've been doing ever since. And so while the technologies and the type of solutions have evolved, it's been quite a fun ride, and now we see that there are some more exciting changes that are happening in the BI space. And we're going to talk about some of those things today. All right, so the first thing I want to do is talk about analytics. And what is analytics? Depending on who you ask, you might get different answers to this question, but basically, when we think about analytics, what we should be thinking about is the collection and use of data from a variety of places to make informed decisions. And analytics take on a variety of flavors, and this diagram here illustrates what some of those flavors are. And it's also sets us up for the way that we've broken out this series of presentations. So analytics can be broken out into three components. There is actually a fourth that people talk about, which I did not include in my presentation. It falls into the descriptive camp. And it's diagnostic analytics, but they're very similar in nature. So descriptive analytics are the ability to basically run reports, do ad hoc reporting, and use OLAP and ROLAP so that you can see what's been going on within your organization. So you look into various metrics around the history of what's been going on. If we move over to the right, you'll see the camp of predictive analytics. And one thing I want you to notice, look at the axes here. The x-axis along the bottom kind of ranks analytics maturity. And over on the left-hand side, that axis, the y-axis, as you go up that axis, you're talking about competitive advantage. And what's happening here is that different types of analytics are more challenging to get to, but also provide more business value. And it isn't necessarily the case that an organization can skip and go straight to prescriptive analytics. There's a maturity that's involved in doing this. It takes time to get to that point. And that's part of what we're going to talk about today. And so these are the three major differentiators in terms of different types of analytics and the focus of this series of presentation. All right. So let's start with some terminology and some history here. So Analytics 1.0 can also be referred to as what we call business intelligence. And Analytics 1.0 really, or business intelligence, focuses around the goal of getting the right information to the right people at the right time. And this was my mantra for many years and still is my mantra moving forward because it still is the case. The only reason for doing all this stuff that we do and all the work that puts into providing analytic solutions is to make sure that people can make informed decisions and not decisions based on gut feel or hunches. And while those may be valuable, I'd much rather make a choice based on having facts that would back up my decisions that I'm making. So business intelligence strives to support a data-driven business process. It presents customers with value-added options. In other words, hey, here are things that you might want to consider when you're making your decisions, and different choices that you make will have different value and different outcomes. And so if you can have this information at hand, you would run your organization better. I've got 2 slides of terminology that I want to toss your way, and you may agree with some and you may disagree with others, but what I have done is I have taken some of the discussions that I've heard throughout the years and combined it with the technical definitions of these things and come up with these sets of definitions. And I think that they work very well, and they may work very well for you. So when we talk about business intelligence, and I must wonder how many times people have asked you, hey, what is business intelligence? And really the way to think of business intelligence is it's the collection of tools, techniques, and methodologies that you use to get source or raw data and prepare it and set it up for consumption in an easy way so that it's meaningful for folks, and ultimately so that they can make good decisions. And that's what business intelligence is. All the other stuff that we talk about is the minutia of what BI is all about. But that's really the goal of BI. And so then we talk about analytics, and what's analytics? And analytics is really the collection and use of data to generate insight and feed fact-based decision making. So you can see that the goal of business intelligence and the definition of analytics play nicely together and go hand in hand. So let's go a little bit deeper and talk about metrics. And so what is a metric? A metric really is simply a measurement that you take. And there's different types of metrics, different types of measurements that you can take, but we're going to primarily focus on business metrics. And you can almost derive the definition of a business metric. It's basically a measurement based on some aspect of a business process. So whatever that business process might be, if you're measuring something, it's a business metric that supports that business process. And then we come to performance indicators and key performance indicators. They go hand in hand. And really, the difference between a metric and a performance indicator or a key performance indicator is that I am coupling a metric with a business goal or an initiative. And so if I tie these metrics to some target or even compensation or a way of measuring somebody's performance, I've now turned the metric into a performance indicator or a key performance indicator. And that's really the big difference between those. It's not just taking a measurement, but taking a measurement and comparing it to an outcome that you were planning to achieve. Which brings us to the discussion of data marts, data warehouses, and I had to toss in big data because you cannot have an analytics discussion these days without mentioning big data. And this isn't a big data presentation, but it is a key component of talking about analytics. It's so prevalent today and so necessary that we have to make sure that we toss that in there. So let's talk about a data mart. And a data mart simply is the access layer, the access component to data that lives in a data warehouse. And it's so the way that I've actually prepared and served up that information to be consumed either by people using software or by systems or whatever, or people typing SQL. But the point is that all the preparation and stuff that I've done in my data warehouse, I'm exposing for consumption via my data marts. And I don't want to necessarily talk about the physical structures of what a data mart is. I'm focusing on the purpose of a data mart. If you're talking about Kimball, which, by the way, since you see Kimball's name in the next definition here, we are a Kimball camp. I'll have to say in terms of what data warehousing religion we follow. In terms of Kimball, that data mart is that dimensional model with facts and dimensions that you put out there and make accessible to people and systems. So if that's a data mart, what is a data warehouse? Well, a data warehouse is collectively all the components, parts that make up your business intelligence solution or that data warehouse. So the source systems exposed data with some extraction, conforming, cleansing, and transformation, and then to deliver that information into those data marts. All the parts and pieces that make that up is part of the data warehouse. And today, big data, which we'll go to next, plays a big role in our data warehouses because big data is the terminology used to talk about a certain kind of a certain data set. And basically, it's these data sets that are so large, there's no necessary structure to them, and it's constantly changing and how it's structured, that we can't contend with it with traditional relational database solutions. So these types of data sets have been coined big data. And we talk about the 3 V's: volume, variety, and velocity. So if you have data that's extremely large, it varies in structure, so you can't break it out into fields, for example, and who knows, and it could be textual in nature, it could be images in nature, and it's coming fast and furious. You're talking about big data. All right. So just for fun, I toyed around with the idea of tossing in the food group pyramid in here as a joke. I may do it for the next time I do this presentation. But since there's a food group pyramid, I thought that there should be a business intelligence pyramid, and I've come up with one. And basically at the top of the pyramid is our high value analytics. And so the whole reason why we build this BI solutions is to provide these analytics. And analytics, really the purpose of analytics is to provide information for business processes, and we'll talk more about that in a bit. So if we go to the next level of the pyramid, here's where we're talking about our metrics, our performance indicators, and our key performance indicators. And that's basically where we've identified and laid out there, here are the measurements that we want to take of these various business processes, and ultimately tie them to goals so that we can use those as our analytics so that we can drive the business. Metrics without those goals, metrics that are not key performance indicators and performance indicators, may be interesting and may be valuable, but if they're not tied to a goal or an outcome, then they're not as important as the ones that are, because really what you want to do is focus on what you're being measured on. And that's the difference between a KPI and a metric. Below that, and I like to call this the infrastructure or the IT layer, in order to make all that happen, we need systems. We need the source systems where the transactional data may lie, or the systems where all the social media information might be, or the streams of data from devices, the Internet of Things, devices talking to devices and generating ungodly amounts of data. So those source systems play a role in all this. And then our ETL processes, where basically in traditional data warehousing, the ETL process, what we're talking about here is the extraction, transformation, and loading of data to be consumed by folks. Now, it's an interesting mix when you start incorporating traditional data warehousing with big data, but we'll get to that in a bit. And ultimately, that manipulation and preparation of data and big data make up the basis for the metrics that we would be exposing, and the key performance indicators and performance indicators that we would be exposing. And we can't forget metadata, but yes, metadata, data about the data, which is also important. It provides context to the data that we are collecting, which is extremely valuable when you're focusing on combining data with the business process. All right, so we're going to focus in this series on those first 2 rungs of the pyramid here. But before we do that, seeing that this is setting the stage, or this presentation is setting the stage for analytics, what I want to do is at least set a baseline and talk about that infrastructure component. I'm not going to get into a crazy technical discussion around these things, but I do want folks to understand that in order for these metrics and these KPIs and these analytics to be available for us to help run the business, there is a lot of work that goes into that infrastructure component. And at least I want to introduce all of you to what some of those are. Some of you that are out there listening to the presentation are in that mix and know exactly what's going on down there. But I just wanted to make sure that we set the groundwork up and talk about what's going on. So I first want to introduce the concept of the BI architecture. And what I tried to do is highlight, well, what are the key components of the BI architecture and what's inside of each one of these layers that we talk about. So the first thing I want to mention is that we have the concept of a back room and the front room. And if you think about a restaurant, you can think about the back room as being where the food is prepared, And if you think about where food is then served up and delivered to your table, that's the front room. And so when we talk about business intelligence architectures, those are the two main areas. And the reason that's important to set that definition up is typically at a restaurant, you don't get to go to the kitchen. You get to enjoy the food that's served from the kitchen, but you don't get to play in the kitchen. And the same is true in a BI data warehouse architecture. The backroom activities are IT activities. They happen where the servers are, and the business community typically doesn't play there. Not only the business community, applications that we're exposing to this data, it's not allowed to play there either. Those happen up in the front room. So let's take a look at the activities that are going on and the overlap. So we have our source systems, and basically that could be a variety of things from databases to mainframes to content that we're getting from web services on the web. Data can come from a variety of places. And the ETL process, extraction, transforming, and loading, the ETL process grabs that data, whether it's polling it or it's getting pushed to it, depends on where the data is coming from and how it's coming. And that data is then set up in a staging area. And that staging area is really where the data is prepared and gotten ready for delivery for consumption. And so what happens back there? Data is cleaned, it's conformed, business rules are applied, a variety of things happen to get that data all ready. Now, in the terms of traditional data warehousing, we're talking about structured data where we have certain rules and know things about that data. When we think about big data and this unstructured, very volatile mounds of data, what we're talking about there are the various applications that we have written to go sniff out the nuggets of information that live in that huge data set, and is then prepared and delivered in a way that can be consumed by humans. And that's what's going on back there. And then ultimately, those two things are merged together so that my traditional legacy structured data, I should take that back, legacy structured data. My structured data is mixed in with the structured information that I derived from my big data and mashed up together so that it makes sense and provides value. That then is consumed via the presentation layer by reporting systems, ad hoc reporting systems, dashboards, analytic systems, whatever the case might be, or humans typing in some kind of query language against that data. And finally, to support all this, we have metadata and we have infrastructure and security. Only the people that can get to the information should get to the information, and we've got to make sure that it's protected and so on. So all these components make up what's going on in a BI solution. There's another important aspect to talk about here, and this is vital to analytics in general, because when we talk about analytics, we are talking about value that we bring to business processes, and that value that is brought to business process is the marriage of the special skills of technology folks with the skills of the business, and the two there must meet and collaborate. And one of the things that has to happen, regardless of whether you're on the IT side of the fence or the business side of the fence, is you have to have a good understanding of what are the business processes that you are supporting, what are the metrics that you are measuring around these, and what are the outcomes and things that we're trying to achieve. And so here we set up what's called a bus architecture that talks about what are we measuring and how do we slice and dice that up in certain ways, and what are we trying to expose. And there's nothing technical about this. It's basically the Rosetta Stone of what the business needs and what IT has to deliver. And the bus architecture has been around for a while. This is a Kimball concept, and it applies in a variety of things that we do. All right. So I mentioned Analytics 1.0 and said that was business intelligence. And when business intelligence was first coined as an expression, it really was around structured data, looking at what had happened in the past, and deriving some insight into that. Well, Analytics 2.0 came with the introduction of big data, and what's happened is that with all the devices that we have out there that are generating tons and tons of data, with all the internet activity that's going on between social media and e-commerce, there are mounds and mounds of information that are being captured. In fact, so much so that we're swimming in it, and we may not even detect or be aware of little nuggets of insight that can help us out within this. So the concept of big data was born. And as I mentioned earlier, big data is data sets that are so large, vary in structure, and is generated so quickly that you cannot deal with them with traditional BI tools and techniques. There's no way that there's so much data, there's so much stuff going on out there that you cannot develop ETL processes and structure this data and load it up in time for it to make a difference, is what it comes down to. It's data that has to be acted upon quickly and in order to provide value, and we have to figure out ways of dealing with it. So there's a variety of things that I mentioned here. So what is this big data? What's the value? What's it for? So big data comes from e-commerce solutions, social media, devices, the Internet of Things. Also, what we're trying to do is look at all this information holistically and derive important information from it, not scope out the data and say, hey, based on this sample set, or let me not say sample set, based on this slice of this information, let me go find some important facts. I need to look at the whole and see what's going on and find those patterns and so on. So whether we're dealing with fraud detection, crime prevention, real-time traffic conditions, disease control, you can see that there's a variety of beneficial uses that all come in the form of big data that we have to contend with. All right, and I think I've said this already, but in essence, what we're talking about here is there's lots of it. There's important things inside of all this data that's being generated by all these different sources, and we've got to figure out ways of sifting through the noise and finding the pieces of valuable information. We can't do this as humans, so we devise basically automation in order to do that, and that's the whole science of predictive analytics and data mining, and those particular tools that help us do that. All right, so if I'm going to talk about big data, I have to talk about two of the major mechanisms that are used to deal with big data, and that's Hadoop and NoSQL databases. Basically, these are environments that are completely built to deal with these 3V type of data, the variety, velocity, and volume data. And its techniques and its software that has been developed to handle this. Like I said, this isn't a big data presentation, but I do want to mention a few keywords that you will have heard of if you Google and look up some of these things. So Hadoop is a distributed file system operating system that runs on commodity hardware, and the idea here is that Hadoop clusters can be made up of inexpensive pieces of equipment that allow for huge parallel processing and redundancy, and basically lots of horsepower to deal with big data. And the way that you address and access information stored in this type of environment is through MapReduce programming. And MapReduce programming is really, in a sense, the dividing of the task and then the regrouping of the results so that you can spread it across lots of hardware. Very, very effective mechanism. So you write the software to sift through the data, and it's spread across as many nodes as you might have, so that the work is being done and highly parallel. So some of the words that you'll hear around Hadoop are Hortonworks, Cloudera, Hive, Pig, Impala, Spark, and these are solutions based on the Hadoop distributed file system, and they each provide their own special, unique blend of things. I mentioned MapReduce, so let me talk about Hive. Hive is an interface on top of Hadoop that, in essence, gives you a SQL-like interface which generates the required MapReduce programming so that you can store and retrieve data in a SQL-like manner. That's an example of one of these things. Then NoSQL basically is another approach for dealing with non-structured data. And you'll see here, there's some of the words that you'll see there is MongoDB, Cassandra, Solr, Splunk, and HBase. So these are technologies that help us out with big data. All right, so if I take that view of data warehousing, that architecture, so what does it look like now? In a simplified form, I've got my source systems, which I extract data from in either real-time, near real-time, or batch, and stage that up in my data warehouse and prepare it for consumption in my presentation layer for use by users or by applications or data mining and predictive algorithms and so on, which then could feed back into the data warehouse as well. All right, now, simply so that everyone understands, when we're building these analytic solutions, the bulk of the work revolves around preparing the data for consumption. And while it takes quite a bit of work in order to do that, the payoff is well worth it, because in the end, what you're doing is providing insight and knowledge for informed decisions at the business level. So if I can go ahead and if I can increase my efficiency by even 5%, think about what that would mean if I can increase my revenues by a small percentage simply by having this data. It pays off in the long run. Not only keeps you competitive, but potentially can give you that competitive edge in business. All right, I'm going to take a breath here, check the time. I think I'm doing okay here. And I want to next talk about analytics in general. So we talked about the whole BI and BI infrastructure, and if I'm going to have data, where's that data going to be? And now I want to get at it, and I want to start exposing these numbers so that I can start taking advantage of it. All right. So here we go, the top half of the pyramid. We're going to talk about analytics now. So analytics are presented and shown to the user community in a variety of ways, and depending on the audience and depending on what the purpose is, all this information is delivered appropriately. So whether it's via a dashboard or ad hoc reporting and so on, or through self-service BI applications that are now available, we deliver this analytic information to the various folks within the organization. All right. So analytics broken up into 3 categories. I have mentioned their names, but now let's talk about what they are. Descriptive Analytics, which focuses on what has happened. Predictive Analytics, which focuses on what will happen. And Prescriptive Analytics, which focuses on, all right, what should I do about this? It's going to tell me and suggest things that I should do based on what potentially will happen. It's like it's it's basically the mother lode in analytics. It's what we're all shooting for here. So let's talk about, and we saw this graph earlier on, the descriptive analytics components. When we talk about ad hoc reporting, standard reporting, and preparing data in a data warehouse, that gives us the ability to sense and respond. It's looking in that rear view mirror and seeing what has happened and gleaning some insight from what has occurred in the past. And that was that pure initial Analytics 1.0 or business intelligence, and that's what that focused on. So the next level is predictive analytics, where we can take that very same information and develop predictive models that we can run the data through. And depending on what we're looking for, we could then go ahead and predict what the values are going to be, or kind of have a sense of what's going on. So if we think about our rear view mirror, if my rear view mirror had a navigation system on it, that's the equivalent of having that predictive analytics. So I'm now not only looking in the rear view mirror, but I'm also forward seeing and having a sense for what's coming up ahead of me. But what if, and I do apologize for the, I just noticed my Outlook message. I'm sure that showed up on the screen. But what if my navigation system could also, in real time, suggest alternate routes and tell me better choices that I could make based on traffic conditions and so on? That would be a game changer. And what that does for me, basically, it changes me from the world of predictive analytics to the world of prescriptive analytics, where not only am I going to predict what's going to happen, but I'm also going to take action or be suggested action that I can take based on information that I'm gathering. So let's think about that for a minute. Oh, by the way, before I go, and this presentation will be available. This image that I'm using of this rear view mirror is an actual product. I've got the link down at the bottom, but it's an add-on rear view mirror with built-in navigation that you could get for your car. Kind of neat for those of you who want a Navi in your car and don't have one. This might be a good idea. Pretty cool product. I know that had nothing to do with the demonstration, but thought I'd share. All right, so let's take a look at what the differences are between these. So in prescriptive analytics, in descriptive analytics, we're looking at and talking about what has happened, and then it relies on a lot of human input to determine a decision and take an action. And that's what that Analytics 1.0 is, that traditional data warehousing. Now, predictive analytics takes it a step further. Predictive analytics does a little more work for us and gives us input about what could happen, which we would then make a decision. Notice with predictive analytics, we get closer and closer to the decisions being provided for us. So we have to do a little less input from the human aspect. Then when we talk about prescriptive analytics, there's two levels of that. There's decision support, where prescriptive analytics is going to tell us, hey, here's the decision that you should make. It's up to you to go ahead and take action. And then the next level is decision automation, where not only is the decision going to be determined, but the system itself is going to take the action. And that's ultimately where we've automated the entire process. So it's interesting to note that you somewhat give up some of the human input into some of these decision automated systems. So think about that. When you think about buying one of the Google cars that drives itself, you're talking about a decision automated prescriptive system. All right, so now let's focus on descriptive analytics. And descriptive analytics is basically the first rung on the analytics ladder. It's in that maturity curve that we looked at, it's the first thing that we go for. It's the ability to answer the question, what has happened? And we usually present those answers with dashboards, with ad hoc capability, and give access to that to the business users so that they can see what has happened and they can think about how they're going to react to that. And it's used to identify trends and patterns and exceptions and things of that nature. So it's very helpful, very appropriate. And it does provide quite a bit of benefit. So let's talk about a couple of things now. So descriptive analytics is looking at what has happened in the past or in the near past, and then slicing and dicing through that information. So if we talk about, so what are some of these analytics? What are these descriptive analytics that we might look at? Let's think about metrics. And the thing that you can do here is what were, put in your metric name, what were sales revenue, what was enrollment, and then slice and dice it based on a variety of dimensionalities. What was it last year, this quarter, this week, in the North region, in Asia, and South America, for a specific product for the graduating class of 2014. Okay. And, oh, I see the slides messed up down at the bottom. I'll read that question to you. And so what are these metrics that I might care about, or these key performance indicators? It really does depend on the industry, and there's just some examples here. If you're a utilities organization, you might want to ask things like how much owner power was generated as a percent of the total power. What was the profit per gas connection? If we're looking at higher education analytics, hey, what's my dropout rate? What's my graduation rate? What's my graduate employment rate? Things of that nature. And you can see that each industry, each business process has its own series of metrics that you would measure. So How do you turn one of these metrics into a key performance indicator? Quite simple. You hook it up to a goal. And key performance indicator or performance indicator, when you take one of those metrics and tie it to a desired outcome that you're going after, you've now turned it into a more valuable thing, that performance indicator or key performance indicator. And now imagine that you are presenting this information, even in a descriptive approach, to the business, and giving them a sense of like, well, here's what the value has been, here's where you should be. And it gives you a sense of like, I know I'm being measured against this, and am I on target, am I below target, or exceeding my target? And you would be surprised, actually you won't be surprised, I'm sure many of you have experienced this, that when someone knows that they're being measured and they're being compensated and everyone's looking at a particular metric so that it's tied to a goal, things typically improve because eyes are on that performance indicator. So normally in my presentations, I do demonstrations, and this was mostly a lecture, but I do want to, at least for a second, give you a sense of, well, what is that descriptive world? What does that look like? There's a variety of tools out there that are very exciting right now that let you play in this descriptive analytics world. 3 examples here are SAP Lumira, Tableau, and Power BI, Microsoft's product. These are all very similar products that do one thing, and that one thing that they do, and let me go ahead and bring this up, is allow users the ability to look at metrics and slice and dice through the data, look for trends and so on in a very easy to use way. So at this point in time, where is this data coming from? From my point of view as trying to run my business, I almost don't care. I just know that it's available to me and I can start visualizing it and interacting with it. So that with these tools I can come in here and graphically I can filter on data. Okay, I can visualize data in any way that I want. So maybe it's not necessarily a bar chart that I want here, but maybe I'll turn this into a column chart with 2 axes. And it wants one more measure, so I'll drop cost in here. And you can see how quickly I can navigate through this information and get answers to what has happened in the past. The 3 tools that I mentioned are very similar in nature. I'm provided with a series of measures that I can use along with a series of dimensionalities, and I can swap and drop in here, drag and drop, and see what's going on. So here, if I wanted to start from scratch, set up a blank thing here. Let's do, why don't we do a 3D pie chart? And I want to take a look at cost as the size of the wedge, and revenue as the height of the wedge. And then let's look at that based on the container type. And you can see that these tools really give me an easy way to go at this data. And you can just imagine it, if it's this accessible, and I can provide this information. Now, you saw me ad hoc playing around, but there's no reason why I couldn't simply prepare dashboards for folks and publish them out there. And in essence, instead of them having to build these things from scratch, they will simply come in here and consume. I'm going to go ahead and switch into preview mode here so you can see what that would look like. They would consume these dashboards and interact with them if they liked, but all the information that they need to know is in here in a very graphical, easy to consume way. And all the data that I'm looking at here is looking in the rearview mirror, what's happened in the past based on some time frame, so that I can make more informed decisions. So obviously I can get a sense for, hey, who are my top 5 customers in Arizona? And that's important to note. Because what I can do is I can make sure that I'm servicing these customers appropriately. And maybe I might want to go ahead and try to get some of the ones at the bottom end of my top 5 and make them better customers and spend my time with these folks as opposed to the folks that are spending very little money with me. And that's kind of the idea of presenting these analytics to the business and to the appropriate people. Simple demonstration. I just wanted to have some interactive graphic to share with you with some of these tools. And you can probably imagine that if I had some of the predictive analytics going on here, I could potentially consume them in much the same way. And yes, you can, and that's part of what we will look at in the next presentation that talks about predictive analytics. So let me minimize this here. All right, so real quick, what I wanted to do today is set the stage to understand, what is the underlying BI infrastructure that supports analytics. Also introduce you to the 3 types of analytics that we will be talking about: descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive. And dive in a little bit and talk about descriptive analytics. It is like the bottom tier of analytics that we look at, but it's important because it does set the stage for everything else that we will be doing. So coming up next, we are going to have a presentation on October 29th based on predictive analytics beyond traditional BI. That is where we will take everything that we talked about today and then start including data mining and data modeling into this and see where that leads us. Following that, we will have a prescriptive analytics presentation. We have not set a date for that yet, but stay tuned. We will have that. And before I wrap it up, a couple things that I want you to keep in mind. If you need help getting some automation within the analytics, the way that you're using analytics within your organization, if you need help in identifying your performance indicators and how do you set those up and how do you use that within the organization, if you need help with your data warehouse, if you need help with user adaptation, by all means, please reach out to us. I believe we can help with that. There's a general email that you can send to, but my emails appeared in several places in the slide. You can reach out to me directly, jose@dunsolutions.com, and we'll see if we can help you out in any way. If you just want to have a conversation around this topic, hey, send me an email. I love talking about this stuff, so I can certainly have a chat with you as well. I know that some questions have come in while I was presenting. What I'm going to do is I will review those questions and come up with answers and share the responses with everyone that was registered for the presentation. I do want to thank you all for attending. In the presentation itself, I have provided some links that have some really good general information around some of the things that we talked about. And from there, many of these, from there, there's links to additional pieces of information around analytics, data warehousing, business intelligence, and big data. And by all means, see some of the content that we put out there on our BI blog at dunsolutions.com, content BI blog. Well, thanks everyone for attending. I certainly appreciate the audience, and have yourself a wonderful rest of the week. And reach out to me if you have any questions. And as soon as I get some answers to the questions that were presented, I will follow up and have those distributed to everyone that was attending. Thanks all very much. Have a good afternoon.